Whether crickets or those among you courageous, Happy New Year. Well, I'm a little disappointed. The giant meteor. You didn't do it, dude. We waited, but it didn't happen. So I guess we're on to the same and similar with a big relief as we move into the new year. So I hope we all can make the best of it. Although I'm not so sure anymore if we're capable. We tend to want to believe we know what we know. As I said, I guess I anticipate quite a few things and don't really realize it. I said the things you think that aren't so. And that seems to be now riding more on my observations as I listen to just lots of people talking about things that you're not really deeply understanding what's happening. You have what is a general understanding that things are wrong, but you're blaming the underlying system of things for it instead of the people that we were obligated to keep from getting into the steering wheel and driving the ship of state, so-called, being that we do live in a society. And that's the other thing, is I'm noticing a lot of people forget that there's a context for everything. When I suggest to you there's a definition that has more than one meaning, you better start thinking in terms of where that word applies, not just what they say the meaning is, but where it might apply, the context within which it'll be used. This is a serious misapplication in people that just doesn't happen too much. And so until that starts to happen, we're going to have lots of people that think they know, and then they don't. And they really don't know what to do about it. And so we then take our responses with our wounds as we see the harm going down around us, around on us, or around to people to us. And this is not saying that we're not caring. This is the problem. We care, but we realize it's kind of beyond us. And in some regard, I think it is by ourselves if we just settle in there, if we just say that's all we have is us. And I guess that's true, but as I've been trying to show you, whether people are really listening and hearing, or whichever, you listen or you hear or you don't, whichever way that works, I'm not just talking my opinion. In fact, I wasn't thinking about it until I just said that. In the chat, in the RLM chat last night, I said our opinions are irrelevant. And I didn't clarify that a little bit, but they're irrelevant if you just put a book on a shelf, it doesn't mean anything. If you just put an opinion in the thing we call our skull and it sits there in the gray matter or wherever, maybe it might sit in your big toe, but we haven't figured that one out either. We just don't, it doesn't mean anything. It's irrelevant. Only the things we apply become relevant. And so this is what I've been trying to do, and I guess I'll use the word try. I always use that as a hesitation. I am trying to do, because I don't know if I'm actually communicating. I see so many people not understanding what I'm saying, not applying what I say, hear what I say and think they know the same thing. And then when it goes to actually applying it, if anybody gets to that point, it's really not applied correctly. So while I wish you all Happy New Year, and we're going through that, and I really will, as I said in the chat as well last night, in the RLM chat, and I'm there because I'm setting up the broadcast, and so I just jump over when I finally get a lot of that taken care of in the RLM chat. I really wish maybe all of us is wishing each other Happy New Year. If we actually put it in practice, we do have a Happy New Year. But in reality, I'm not so sure. And I'm asking you first of all, but telling you if that becomes a fact, that I'm not so sure because we're not acting, we're not taking action. We're not evolving in that action. We are looking at the plan being used against us as being fulfilled. And whether I put that in a war scenario, in open air prison, in just in apathy, whatever title you put on it, the lack of response against any oppression will be what oppresses you. And if you just happen to escape, because listen, they're just waiting for every one of us that have a clue to die. I keep telling you that. And, all these, everyone wants to lament about the celebs that died. I don't know, folks. I don't even want to think too hard, really. But what about all the other people in the world that died in wrong wars that the United States of America, with Britain, all you can name the list, Israel put on people, the over-oppression of the Gazan people. This is a sickness that we stand and watch. And that has to be fixed. Some hope in the future that we can make that happy. If I stand up and say Happy New Year to you, I mean it in the context that I'm really wanting us to work together to make happy happen. Otherwise, we're looking at a dark, world. And I don't mean dork world, because dork world almost presses more onto the better part. I think it would, referring to the dork table. There's a dark world upon us, and unless we may not be able to stop it, but we can certainly, if we want to vote, that's the vote we have to place, is our action against oppression. I guess that's as simple as I can put it. And I bring behind Woodshed the lessons and principles we're learning. I've learned, I put together on how to address the oppressor, whatever name you want to put on it. And this target-rich environment, that's why I can only go to a war scenario. International law is law applied to all of us. It's whether or not you want to agree that there's a rule. It's applied because natural law pushes that, and that is then backed up against our fallen nature. And these rules, so-called rules, even as oxymoronic as the oxymoron, I guess I should say more properly, but oxymoronic, the oxymoron called law of war, it still attempts to bring, even to the most horrendous times that we put on each other, a sense of order, because we're that bad. And that's not to say we're not good. It's just that we let that bad rule us. And that is not proper. And so, I'm always hopeful. I'm always optimistic. But I have to take stock at some point that there's a reality. And the reality is those that think they know-it-all and they got the intelligence to figure it out, and we are intelligent at some level. We're not being really so smart. But we collect up a rationale of something. We think we've researched the depths of the thing to come to the conclusion, and we make our stand, and we draw our line in the sand, and we don't realize it's actually in the sand, that maybe we didn't. All we know might be accurate to a point, but not deep enough. And yet we stand right there when we should have been taking the journey a lot farther. And that's what I see. For all the people that may listen to me and all the intelligent people I deal with and really care, listen, I don't know that I deal with anybody that's not caring. It's not about all that. It's that there's something in us that said, that's it. I'm not putting up with it no more. I'm not putting up with the nonsense, and I'll do nothing in face of that nonsense. And that's not how it works. As much as I'd like to believe that we could do that, that's not going to do it. We have to take action, no matter what it is. The inaction is an action. This is the other natural law that people don't understand. You don't put anything in a context, in a proper place. You don't keep them in categories of potential alterations within that. Then you don't put them anywhere. They don't actually get traction. They're floating around in the world. They are as legal and as fictional, these things, these opinions and these ideas, as the legal system that you go read the law and it says that these laws apply above the air and the water. They're not even, the legal isn't even attached to the land. Go read it, folks. Go find it. Everyone wants to know, well, how do I do this? I want you to go read this build the foundation, and then we'll talk. I guess is where I'm getting to the point of that. This happened again on a forum. Well, can you explain about this administrative procedure and the reasons for the agency's not supposed to be able to put a takings on you by an imposition, by regulatory imposition? Well, I guess I could give that answer. I gave enough in the forum answer, but now I'm being asked to explain it. Why? Why shouldn't you just go to the Administrative Procedures Acts and read them? Why am I doing all the work? And I'm happy to do it at some level, but it's also, there's a reality. If you're not investing the time, I know you're not going to be able to do anything. You'll think you know a lot, and you'll know nothing. You'll know nothing. And in a way, I'm off my tabs. I just looked up and realized where I wanted to start on something much more fun. A running joke for me, anyway. But here we are. This is what happens. So much going on. It's like going through the technicals to start the broadcast wipes my mind of where I'm going. And I just remember the technicals, for those of you on Pastcast or Prodcast, prodding you to do better, hopefully, with what you know, your skills, your power. This, I think, is BTW RLM 195. That we really have to, I just don't know what to say. I just, at some point, I'm getting very exasperated. Not aspirated, exasperated. We are fine people, at least those that I tend to want to associate with, what I can. And again, excuse me for not getting in the chats. I just can't do that. It just doesn't equate. And the more years it goes on, it's less. All these things are starting to equate less. And part of that is something I've been trying to manage, is the workload to try and hold things together. Keep keep cutting the kindling for the fire to start at some point, and I'm hoping that happens. That's maybe that's going to be my big mistake, and I'm hoping not for us, not about me. We're all in it together, and what we're in, we need to identify and then work against, or we agree with it. We are the co-terrorists with the terrorists that go out and do the things that we see in the fake news. We call it fake. It's the news, folks. It's the notice to you, whether it's good or bad, whether it's a lie or the truth. It's a notice, and you have to learn how to see what that is. And that's why I tell you, behind the Woodshed. We're beyond media. We're in principles. We're looking at those that would come with the color of the authority of a notice that's supposed to be correct, and saying those people are committing crimes against us. Now, how do I understand? How do I actually separate the wheat from the chaff? Becomes a problem of principle, applied principle, not your notions of it, actual applied principle. Now, whether I'm absolutely right or wrong, I could care less about your opinion whether I'm right or wrong, because there's nobody that sends me an email and tell me, doesn't give me a foundation, and I'm thirsting for that. I'm starving for that, folks. I want to know substantial differences in research that show that the path that I'm saying is wrong. Wrong, I'm talking wrong. Not your notion of what you don't think is quite proper. What's wrong with it? Because I want to get better at it. Now, I believe I'm setting a really high bar. I don't believe I have any special skills necessarily, but maybe I think I'm realizing really what dogged persistence is. I just found what was oppressing us more vile than doing about anything else, actually. And I know that seems to be a problem. We make the excuse, but in the ultimate, folks, if you don't stop, at some point you really have to balance what's more important: the oppression that destroys you, to allow that, or to stop the little things around around your life that you claim are stopping you from stopping the oppression. That's going to destroy you. That's not going to set the example that we need to set either, as we come to this time when everyone's lamenting the celebs. I went off on the other track about people dying around the world under unjust wars and all this other injustice, which it really has a lot of reasons behind it, creating false economies and controlling people, the whole things that we talk about all the time. I'm not lamenting or reanalyzing what I've said every year like I hear people do. And we've been covering this. If you listen to what I'm saying, I've been predicting everything that's been going on by what's written, by the notice they give us. I don't even really look back. Now, it's important to look back for history, but at some point you're anticipating, and you're doing that because you're on an action mission. Not just to be here to talk. You're on or have an opinion or be able to chat, or whatever. You're on an action mission. It means your life if you don't anticipate the enemy correctly. And I say enemy being an oppressor, any oppression. But the celebs are all dying, and I just looked at it and I said, they've been pushing this baby boomer thing. They made it like this big old baby boomer bulge of population. Well, do you think they were going to live forever, folks? Do you think? Is that what they did to us too, thinking these people are living forever? And then we didn't realize those baby boomers had even more babies. The boomers had boomers, and there we are today. These numbers are now beyond what the boomers' numbers were. That these people are dying, folks. We're there. Even if I'm included in that group, I keep telling you I think I'm just outside of that. But even if I'm included in that group, we're dying. It's happening. In 2016 marked the date we're done. It's over. We got another 15 years and most everyone's gone. You'll be only hearing about the World War II vets. They'll be turning into the baby boomer hanger-ons. There'll be just a few left. And then it's on you all. You all passed below the so-called baby boomers. You're next. But guess what? They stripped you. They stripped you of certain, and they stripped you of your interest, and they stripped you of your ability to they laid you naked against the technocratic world that's going to be telling you that you're entitled to be coddled, and that's not the real world, and that's what they're feeding into, and you're going to succumb to that without the tools that I'm giving you today that other people can give you. That I guess I'm now way off on what I wanted to say. I think it's apparently more imperative for you to know the truth of this. the 2006, the celeb, notwithstanding it's a big psyop against y'all, this is marking the time when you're watching the people of the baby boomers are now on the road out. They're dying. There's no guarantees across generations, but this one certainly, this is the notice this year. If you're of that generation, you don't have much time to help, I guess is the notice for us. If you're not of the generation, you're next. And if you're not of the generation far away, you're next without the tools that we can give you here until today. And I'm telling you that we, even if I include myself in the baby boomers, which I honestly don't think I am. I mean, I think we're the missing generation. We missed the boom, and we missed the next generations coming that they were actually controlling. We're the witnesses. We're the last moments of a witness as well. As I tell you, the mining law, getting the memory of the mining law has up until now probably saved the mining industry, and I wish that the miners, the microcosm that the miners are, as reflecting the macrocosm of America being the same identical thing on a fractal reduction, they are not taking advantage of this regained memory that is on y'all that are down in the generations coming up. I'm not saying you're not going to be able to. I'm not saying you have no capacity. I'm saying you've been diminished and you're going to have to fight hard to get that capacity. You can get it right now. Why more people are not, I mean, I guess I could speculate forever about why more people don't listen behind the woodshed. Not because of me, but because of the message I have that no one has been able to actually claim is the wrong way to go, can find a fault in at this point. I hear lots of opinions, but no one offers a counter solution, and that makes those opinions, again, useless. They're just noise. And I'm getting to the age where I don't have to deal with that anyway. You're going to be noise? Go ahead. I can't stop. That's your choice. You want to think you know so much, and you got it understood, and everything is it's just the way it goes, just because that's the way it goes, you're missing it. For as smart as you, as intelligent as you are, as much as I respect any of y'all, you're missing it. And the other point is it doesn't going to matter in 15, 20 years, is it? Some will be blessed enough if that's a blessing to continue to go and continue this new year of purgatory, as it was mentioned. We were kind of identified that we're continuing the purgatory. Yeah, I think this in some part, letting a global oppressor of any name on you, of any status or of any construct on you, is a purgatory. We have a much better thing we could be doing. And if we can't yet, I think we have the capacity coming together to work, especially with the tools of the Internet, coming together to work to solve what we don't quite have. But my view is we haven't been doing what was given to us. We've allowed other people to usurp that and utilize that logic, the reverse logic. They've taken advantage of the so-called loopholes, one of which, to make it less esoteric, is this necessity matter. That we haven't focused on that to say that necessity and fraud is not enough. That's the crime. We haven't gotten together to make any kind of addressment of any of this. Any of it. And it's addressable. It's completely addressable. My mind starts running on all the issues I've talked about, whether it's DAPL or whether it's the drugs, the DEA, the rules and regulations, the administrative impositions, the international rules, the local regulations that are bringing in international rules. There's a way to address every bit of it, and we're not. So Happy New Year, but I don't believe it is. I mean that in earnest. Happy New Year. I want us to see the better day. I'm happy for all of us. But it's an obligation and duty, actually, being that we didn't vanquish the oppressor. It's still there. And it's I tell you, it's an amoeba. It goes around. You put any obstacle, it'll contort itself around or through anything. If you've ever watched an octopus go around and get itself into tiny spaces and through tiny cracks, you get a better idea. The amoeba is even better at it. And it can change its spots, if not be transparent to you. I keep telling you all this thing to see. You got to be able to see the transparent. And when we get to that point, I've been telling you that there's another thing. There's something that's unseen that's working. And until I can get you all to act on the anticipation of identifying the transparent, we can't get to the more meaty matters. And I tell you, this is multidimensional. This is no joke. And I refuse at this point to move further. I'm actually backing up a bit, saying, unless you want to, I've told you this before, not you, just anybody generally, if you don't want to go to the places I say go read and get an insight so that we can discuss the insight, and then what that might mean and where we might do it, and the power maybe within that, what are we going to talk about? Oh, the trees and the global warming that's coming out of the sky right now, and that kind of thing. Yes, we can talk about all that. But the failure to act against the oppressor grows stronger every day. And I say oppressor just in the general. Whatever you find as an oppression anywhere needs to be fought. I can't even imagine all the oppression that's going on. And that just shows you how bad we are as people against ourselves and why we have these laws, whomever is attempting to apply them. So-called, these laws are how we got remedy. If people don't quite get this, they really don't get this. The law means really nothing. It's the objective basis by which we claim remedy, so we don't burn witches on pyres for being witches just because of some politician decided that the woman he was after and abusing needed to die so that she didn't witness against him of his abuse. We don't go burn people. We don't quarter people anymore. It's been deemed to be horrendous, a penalty beyond our better nature, not our fallen nature, our better nature. And so we don't have this objective basis. We can't apply the remedy. It could be, and Genghis Khan could be the remedy. And then everybody would say, oh, I want chaos. I want no rules. I want no ruler. I'll be on my own ruler. We'll make our own decisions. You don't realize this has no context. You are not an island. Your little clique is not an island. The fallen nature is out there to take you down. You're going to have to rally up to protect yourself. And if you don't, you're going to be succumbed, just like it's being done transparently to us now. There's no context to these fairy tale concepts that are going on. And these things are just avoidances, and I think actually when applied to our duty to stop, an obligation and duty to stop any oppression, this is our fiduciary breach against ourselves to take these stands. We can describe the words any way we want, but if it doesn't turn to the oppressor, and there is an oppressor, we've aided and abetted that. And just to say that's why I suggested one option, even though I'm not going to say go to the courts unless you know how to do what we did to defeat the courts themselves, is these equitable remedies, these things that were outside common law that were serving actual justice, even against those that purport to be the authority. Well, they're purporting to be authority, they're authorita under color. And so those that confine their thoughts to common law are doing themselves a disservice. Those that throw everything else out as not valid is also denying a reality and working themselves a disservice. I bring the stuff behind the woodshed, the principles here, bestowed upon you as I've understood them to be, and use them in order to give you the tools or the weaponry, whatever. You want to build something, we'll take it, call it tools. Whatever you are comfortable for in your paradigm of construction and of your reality, I can speak to if I know that. But that's the problem behind the woodshed and talking to a broad listenership. I don't know what you all listen for. I know you do a lot of dismissing, but I don't know what you listen for, so I can't really speak to you. And they've done all the studies. If I talk in terms of visual acuity, and you're someone who responds in gripping and grasping with things, with your hands, you will not understand me. And so that's why I come in and I say different things, and I try to use the different modes of words that convey different types of methodologies of how you would receive it. If I'm talking about, do you just see that, and all you can feel in your mind is really how did you grasp that understanding. If I said, did you see that, you won't understand me because you understand it. You would have to heard the word grasp. We're that controlled and that controllable and that finite in our reception. And so if we don't, we don't give ourselves the leeway to understand we have our own limitations, and you don't listen to what I've been saying, the new year just becomes another year. Nothing's really changed. Yeah, I have my hopes and aspirations, and it's a day marking a time, certainly. It's a mass acknowledgement of a time change. We could do that any time of the year. But nothing has changed in actuality. And I think it was Flash who made a comment, this is a fraud that anything's changed. So, yeah, I have to agree. So, let me get onto my pet peeve, and I'm going to have to talk about it now, because I'm finding there's more and more interest here in my place, and I need to just put it out publicly. Get off my island. Leave my island alone. Cold hard facts. Satellite spots massive object hidden under the frozen wastes of Antarctica. Scientists baffled by bizarre observations of gigantic anomaly buried beneath the polar ice cap. Scientists, go home. Leave my island alone. I had to go public on that, folks. I'm going to go reclaim that after a while. And this Wilkes guy that's in this article, he's a fraud. That's not his place. Leave my island alone. That place that no one knows about, you don't understand, that's where we come from. I'm walking my trek around to the Ross Island shelf to go tell you folks, get off my island. I know they're not going to listen, but I got to put it out there publicly. That's my public notice to y'all. Get off my island. I'm going to reclaim it one day. Antarctica, they're going to find out whether or not it's an asteroid, doesn't matter. Get off my island. Anyway, fascinating, kind of cool stuff. They think that a space rock came in, and they're saying to explain this fake and false, unprovable concept of dinosaurs lived once and were all killed off by asteroids. They got to create another asteroid that can do these things, and it's cool stuff to look and watch in this vast island out there. Being hit at the pole is kind of an interesting angle, but there's a gravity anomaly, and they don't quite know what it is. And the conspiracy theories are abounding, and I just said, every one of you, get off my island. Don't make it trouble for me there. I'm trying to clean up the rest of the place. Along the lines of scientists who quite get it right, but will fight to the death about how they are right and utilize the legal system to do so. Court dismisses Michael Mann, the progenitor of Michael Mann-made global warming. Court dismisses Michael Mann defamation suit against National Review. Without going into too much, there was a multiple party case. The new National Review was a publication. It was the case is dismissed as the National Review came out and said we have First Amendment rights. We didn't address his. We didn't talk to him particularly, and that you have to dismiss this case. The court actually believed, went with that, and so the First Amendment stands here at least in words to protect the National Review. And this is what I keep telling you: look and see who's protected and who's not. And maybe you should rethink about how you look at the world, how it works on you, and what it's trying to do to you, and how you're positioned by it, and change your position, change that status. Don't approach things the way they've made it for you, and learn what that is. Because this case was continued against a couple of other parties, and they are sitting in a little different position where they, in fact, appears they may have breached the line for a defamation case. And so what am I saying? Go learn what defamation is. I told you there's like 8 different excuses you can use. Insanity is one of them for in a defense of a defamation case. Defamation in certain states can be kind of difficult, but it's there to do. And Michael Mann, trying to protect himself, the inventor, as much as he is, he's trying to produce a proof. In some regard, I'm hoping that they take this on in earnest and show how the guy, isn't anything. He's just another scientist with an opinion and really can't back it up when there's a larger context. So this can be a forum as well. This case, even though the National Review is out on First Amendment principles, the remaining parties do have the ability to bring forth on the defamation the clarity of their proof that would show that he is what they've said he is, and avoid a defamation judgment. And so our notice is publishers of sorts, of all kinds of media, have within a constraint literally a higher right of statement than anybody who doesn't come underneath that and doesn't step over that line. Now, that line hasn't been stepped over in judgment. It's still a question, And I think this is an opportunity, if you so chose, and I would say for most of my listeners and emails I get, don't you do this till you get a lot more involved. But this is another tool that we can use to out these gurus of just crime, global crime. They set the policies. This is the best science. These are the people that set the best sciences that you are going to be living under, and you already are. But more importantly, your little ones are underneath this oppression. This is another oppression. In fact, the lawsuit is an oppressive action, and so there's other types of defenses. But here we are, scientists running around the world, making claims, making stories. And we believe it, and maybe some of it's true, but we can demonstrably find a lot of it's not. This is all based in theories and hypotheses that science would say are never understood to be the truth. And yet, we have, without really important scrutiny, without the actual scientific scrutiny on these things, allowed these people to run roughshod over our lives, and we've taken no action against them. I'm even for scientists that are honestly knowing that we don't understand, but that's our best guess. I'd rather hear scientists actually doing that than to say that, no, this is and then using, consensus is a felony against us. Consensus-based anything is a felony against us. I'll say it again. I don't know if people appreciate that point. It doesn't not operate where everyone lives. It operates where everyone lives. And it's a felony against every one of us and all of our stuff. Our environment, not the one they've fabricated. But fabricated by what? They take an authority that they know that they have all this technology, as fantastic as it is, and they make these declarations, and they do their analysis of what their technology says, and know they will oppose anybody who has a contrary analysis. And they do that, and then they promote all that through what? This so-called fake news. It's a notice, and it's up to us to study the veracity of all these notices that's called news at all. As I think I've twittered out, Happy fake new year. Happy fake news year. It's going to continue. Never behind the woodshed. But happy fake news year. Because it's going to continue. And the story of fake news, mass hysteria, and induced insanity. Induced insanity. You take this stuff in, even though if you don't, you'll take it in opposition. You take on the insanity. To be opposing the insanity that's been brought on by the lie is why I'm trying to back people off of this fake news thing. It's just another, we can put a term, psyop. It's a conditioning tool against you. That's why I adjust things just a little bit. Maybe my subtlety's too much. Maybe you get the subtlety, but you don't apply the subtlety. I'm telling you, this is notice, not news. It's always been notice, not news to me, once I got the eyes to see. I'm trying to give you the eyes to see and then do something with that new sight. And see, those of you that deal in gripping things don't understand what I'm talking about. This is how finite this construction, this language is that we have, how dupable we are. You won't even hear what I'm saying because I didn't use the right form of your reception. And I know that, and there's nothing, I'm not that brainy to figure out how to go around it. I make my same mistakes in communicating the same thing. But you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. What about the hands to work it out? For those of you that want to grasp things. There's an insanity that's built in that you even engage when you oppose it. Instead of identifying it, what I've been trying to tell you, name it for what it is, find the fact against the fact. In fact, I was, another time, I've had the discussion about people don't understand what the distinction or difference, or even that there is one, between public land and public domain. Public land and public domain. It took a long time to figure out how to, best explain that there is a distinction at all, let alone what that is by application and, definition and application. Is the same difference and problem we're now having in the mining industry, if I can call it an industry, between the term mining district. We have a bunch of usurpers coming in to adulterate what mining districts are. And people don't understand what a mining district is, and they don't want to do the study to find out what they were and what they can be and what they can be used for. And as I have done the research and then handed that research to others to do their research so that we would all on the same memory, if I can say it that way, because this is all done before us by people who are really more foundationally and fundamentally intelligent than we are today. And you have to understand, I don't speak from a position of intelligence because I found that the intelligence was before me that we had abandoned. And we should have never done that, so we weren't so smart. So let's not, well, we were smart, we weren't intelligent. We abandoned the very foundation of our existence. And so we have this condition going on that mining districts were a thing. That a new adulteration's coming in, and it's coming from the outside to invade what the power of a mining district is and to eliminate its understanding of what it did and what it was and what they are. And so I have a problem in trying to communicate that to people, no different than, do you know the difference between public land and public domain? That when I had to solve that problem, I said, well, let's just put them both in the same sentence and make the sentence that I say as short as possible so that when I speak in one, I cause in the sentence it to counter the other term. It was the same thing. I just had to, same tool that I just used to explain the distinction between mining districts that are adulterated and promoted today by people that are trying to subvert the mining, the grantee essentially, and what the miner did as a grantee for his own cause before he came to my terms, but he did it before by a foundational knowledge and principle. That I put the term mining district in the one that's being formed today, I put in opposition to what a mining district is, which the new one can't be, the one that they're adulterating can't be, which is a miner's government. A mining district, by definition, is a miner's government. The new organization under state law of a mining district is not a miner's government. How subtle the deceptions are that come that people just absorb and buy into are the subtleties I try to bring to you, that if you're just half listening and you're not applying this stuff and not going to work it out, you have to be missing in what I'm saying. And I hear the major disconnect. I hear the major disconnect in everything. It's painful almost. And I don't know what more to do about that. That's not my decision to be half listening or half applying or pretending to be interested or whatever. I don't even know what it is. I'm just not into that to even analyze it. I just know it's a big disconnect. It's a chasm as big right now as I've identified between commerce and production. That has now been, a bridge has been built. A bridge has been built between production and commerce in the United States, which was never supposed to be built, and I liken that bridge as really the pirate ship coming up against the commerce pirate ship coming up and putting a gangplank across the ship of production, and they're destroying it. And what we need to do is burn bridges. Stop your bridge building. It's killed. That concept is killing us in the foundations. Why? Because it adulterates principle. It bridges an adultery, an adjunct policy to a principle. You're going to destroy yourself when you do that. You can't yoke to an evil, is what we're told. And it can be a minor evil. The point is it's an adulteration to the factual principle. And you adulterate the factual principle one iota, and it's over. It's done. You have compromised. That's why you can't compromise. Compromise is what they is the construction material they use to build the bridge from the pirate ship to you and what is yours. Fake news is another bridge, and put it in your mind. They're doing it in your mind. So this fake news is an insanity. This article is pretty interesting. I can't go through it. People need to read this stuff. No different. They need to read the Administrative Procedure Act to find what the remedy for an imposition of the state in a regulatory matter upon something that's not supposed to be imposed is. It's right there in 2 paragraphs, or one paragraph actually, another supporting paragraph. I could tell the answer, but why? I tell the answer. You think it's given to you. You think you know how to use it, and you don't. You don't have a clue. Oh, I read it. Yeah, I see that. Or you don't put it together. Or I didn't read it, and I listened to him. I believe him, so I'm going to use it. And then you go hurt yourself. I'm getting less and less inclined to allow that, and that's going to be worse and worse in this condition, and I don't know how to resolve that quite yet. Because y'all know what you think y'all know, and I'm saying it's not actually so. And we're also really intelligent. We really have some pretty cool tools in our brain that we actually convince ourselves that it is enough, and we do know enough, and we've done enough research. And for someone like myself, if I can sound as arrogant as this will, that those of us that know can see the failure, that's what I'm looking at. I have a different perspective point. And I see the journey for a lot of people ended way too soon. In fact, it should have never ended. There should have been no conclusions made that were set and certain. And the only thing that's certainty is if we find an oppressor, that the oppressor exists and it's factual, that's certain that they exist, but that the condition of their existence might be changing, that you continually monitor that as well and learn about that. And we're always looking very closely at the subtlety. Some people will act like if they're in a position of seated decision, they'll act like they are coming your way, when in fact that's just the tactic to get around you. And so it's very critical within your analysis to say, okay, well, we got the seated decision moving in the right direction of the law, but is it for the purpose of doing that, or to get us to look away because we think they now wear the clothes of a lawful decision maker? And more likely than not, right now, it's because they're a chameleon and they're an amoeba. So the analysis never, ever stops. Your learning never, ever stops. You can't take set and certain decisions on a lot of things. The only thing we're set and certain, again, is the certainty of a principle that addresses our condition, which must necessarily be put in a place. And must necessarily be put in a proper place. And I'm not talking about the New Age place-based nonsense. You see how they use the words, and you think it's the proper place? Is when they say place-based, your mind goes to proper? Oh, this must be something we need. No. It's the place they put you. It's that silent weapons of quiet war section of the electrical board they've allowed you to plug into, and you did. That's your place. That's the place-based analysis. So these fake news, so-called, I wrote, in fact, you'll get them. MSM is actually, I thought in a Twitter, mainly Schrodinger's media. MSM is mainly Schrodinger's media, with the new concepting now that fake news. It's only not fake news when you believe it. It's the quantum truth superposition. And if you know of Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, I made the additional hashtag nice kitty. It's only not fake news when you believe it. In other words, your perception and observation of a thing may alter its appearance to you. Is the cat dead or a cat live can't be known until you actually observe a thing. And then it's based on your observation. The prejudice of your observation is what we're dealing with all the time. So we can't even claim to even know the truth at some point. We just have to work from our foundations, which are time immemorial, ingrained, written in books to remind us, to keep the memory if our rituals failed and our cultures failed as diversity came on, to tell us there's things more important that can never be compromised that will protect us. And they will only when they're applied. Nothing protects us if it's not applied. Responding to another fake news so-called hashtag, land of the free, home of the brave, was fake news, folks. Responding to a Twitter, U.S. denies it created ISIS, accuses Turkey of spreading fake news. Now, I told you the mirror back in the Middle East reflects on what happens in the United States. The land of the free and the home of the brave was fake news, folks. Go read 42 U.S.C. 1981. Land of the free, home of the brave. It's land of the fee, home of the slave, folks. You can see this pretty clearly And it's because we allowed them to impose a regime that imposes exactions of every kind as your equal right. And no one said a thing. Go read it, folks. Really think about what that is saying. It's very short. It's only 3 paragraphs. Don't miss the Part C on who will be in the future doing this to us. Look very carefully that non-governmental organizations might be that tool that they knew back in Lincoln's day. If you don't think this had long legs, you're missing it. If you think you know what's up, you're missing it. And once you identify this, it's an oppressor. You can't just give in to it by saying, oh, I'm not going to do it because that's what they want. I'm not going to do it because that's how it always goes. It doesn't, folks. You're just making that up. That's Schrodinger's kitty coming to bite you. That's your own fake news. You're making your own fake news, and you planted the seed was the seed of this destruction that was set into it when we believed it was an experiment instead of a fact of the fulfillment of a future that we could do. The land of the free and the home of the brave was fake news, folks. I don't know. It is. It's still working current. July 4th seems to be a big one. A lot of these days that they tell us are big ones. You see, everyone recognizes readily the commerce, the commercialization, the mercantile pushing itself on these days. The commerce is overpressing the production. It's depressing the land. It's oppressing the land. The production is you. They're building bridges on to steal your ship of state, the one that was production and actual wealth. Is what I talk about in referencing the mining law, the miners, the highways, the water, your patents for the property, the courts that were supposed to sit there that are now gone away, that nobody says boo about, that there's millions of us that could be working. If there's anything that I lament, it was an army that sat on its tail the entire time that could have stand up and just didn't even have to fire a shot, just walk into the offices and did the right thing. Made the right statements and didn't go home figuratively. You go home, you have to sleep. But, I mean, you come back, you're in their face, you're in the seats of decision in the right way, and you show them if they're not doing the law, they're a criminal, and you insist on accountability, and then you get it. Not like we're having trouble because only the handful of us saying, here's the decision. You guys are committing treason literally and continuing to get away with it every day, and we just don't have the mass to go in and stop that. Got the foundation laid. It's not an opinion anymore. It's not a question. It's not just some off statement. It's a fact in law that the seats of decision for the most part right now working under these certain things such as consensus and consensus-based items is a treason. Certainly felonies. The land of the free and the home of the brave was fake news. We don't seem to talk about that much. In fact, I didn't hear about fake news even talking about that because that would be the truth, wouldn't it? So, we don't listen well to the silence either as people. We have a failure. We have a fundamental failure of listening to silence, the things that are not said, the omissions in law. Even people having the most trouble when I say there's actually, for a seated decision in the color of authority to take your property is 2 felonies, people have a hard time understanding that. Most people think it's just in the commission, but the law itself says the omission to do the thing that the law imposed the duty to do is a felony as well. Makes every felony under color of law a dual felony conduct when applied to a authority, a color of authority imposed to diminish you. Why doesn't anybody else talk about this? Why does it seem so hard that I'm somehow some intellect to figure it out? Folks, I just went and read it. What I did next is I applied it. Something we're so apathetic to not follow through with. And then we're not done because then we have to go forward. We have to go bring the accountability, and that's where the big disconnect will be until, as I identified to you, the mass comes and becomes the din. This constant rattling of the cage that the seated decision, the officials are in, that this is a crime and we're here to get your arrest because this is a crime and we want equal accountability. nonsense with its exactions of every kind. We don't believe that either. That's on your citizens that are a subject, and that's not us. But you don't know how to. You don't listen to me behind the woodshed to figure out how the status got worked out to allow that to make a claim different. You don't realize when you walk into a court that now presumes you guilty instead of innocent, with your mind thinking the opposite, that you had something to do with avoiding the jurisdiction. You have no clue about all that. I've been telling you for all these years. Well, as I think about it, say that, the anniversary's coming very quickly here for this broadcaster, another anniversary. But I've been saying the same stuff for years in different ways, and more things than just the same thing, but as we apply, more and more comes on us. You have to have a status, you have to have a thing, and you work international law. You have to have a foundation from which you work. You can't use the outside notice unless it's actual notice that has someone a right to tell you, which you should challenge at any point when they tell you something. You have to understand when someone's causing a big bluff and then they need to be put in their place. Israel warned New Zealand that UN resolution was a declaration of war. Israel warned New Zealand that UN resolution was declaration of war. It was pipsqueak over there. It's not even actually a state of Israel. It's just in name only. Having no territory actually recognized under international law is becoming state enough to say that New Zealand declared war when they found and voted for the proposition that the Palestinians may have a right to the land as well. That the settlements that Israel is building on occupied Palestinian land need to stop. New Zealand was the one that declared war? This pipsqueak called Israel. Doesn't have standing at all, folks. And we put up with this nonsense. The United States sat back on this one. You don't hear that comment coming out, the declaration of war against the United States, do you? Why New Zealand? Why not Australia? Why not anybody else? So this is the mouse in the room that roars that no one turns around and puts in a cage. They have no standing. They've given a notice that the New Zealand's declaring war was no different than the paper I've seen printed as a copy. I didn't see the original. I'm seeing the stuff that passes the internet where the so-called Jews declared war on Germany. And then everyone got on Germany for going against the so-called Jews. And then the people that I've researched, that I did it behind the woodshed, that were on the SS were so-called Jews. They just happened to be a different type of Jews of the Jews than they were after to so-called kill, put in concentration camps. The whole story starts falling apart when you look at it, except the part that says that people are really cruel to each other. That Israel warns New Zealand that the UN resolution, it voted to give equal rights and told Israel to stop building settlements on Palestinian-occupied land, is a declaration of war, ought to have been stopped by the international community against Israel with major sanctions, the first of which is acknowledgement that it doesn't actually exist yet. It has no actual territory. And until you start playing nice and declaring war on everybody, maybe you don't deserve this land that was maybe partly yours, but you have no clear title to. I have no opinion beyond, because the land law tells me about this. Give me your title. Show me your clear title. If you don't have it, stop talking big and bad. Stop puffing your chest. Stop declaring war on people. You've got no standing. Your claim of violation has no support. It's a violation on its face. See, I can go international law and I can go local law. The same notice to you that's handed to you by seated decision is the same answer. Why? Because this international law per se is the international dealings like any people would interact with themselves as nation state, as a nation that they are amongst each other. No different than you, the island you call yourself. Every man's an island. They say they can't exist, but everyone thinks that they are. Has to interact with another island out there. I guess we're all floats them and jets them on the sea of humanity. That we're going to have some little rules on how we're going to work. And time immemorial has established that on the brutality that we are that tries to quench that fire. And it turns out to be the very same laws and rules as we fractally move into our nations, notwithstanding their distinctions and differences, and notwithstanding how the United States of America is actually a better place in the world than anywhere else, not because of its policies or its politicians or its politics or bureaucrats or any of that. It's because of its land disposal laws, the records that identified those, and the courts that were supposed to be put in place, or that were put in place, to make sure that was kept to keep the peace. And when I saw that, and I saw how they destroyed us with the MERS, I said, the globalists have figured this thing out. They're so far ahead of us, but we have an answer. We have to get back to the foundation. And just to add something about the land, Ron Stephen was talking on Rocking the Boat in UCY.TV, his broadcast 2 hours before this broadcast, that go and take an inventory of the value of the land. That might work in Canada. It can't work in the United States of America because of the enabling acts that created the states and the obligation and the duty between the states to dispose those lands to the public, but the public then was not government, the public was the people. Public included some corporations, but those were very narrow. In the mining law, for instance, you can't get minerals unless there was a law that said you could get minerals. It's to the state as well. That changed in 1866, but it changed it in an equilibrium standpoint. A corporation cannot actually take more than anybody else can show is theirs to protect. So in the United States, just to clarify that, they can't make an actually lawful inventory of value to put in a bank. What they're supposed to do is dispose the land to the people, and the people put it in production, which creates the wealth. The government sits to protect that, actually. It's supposed to advise to make that better, that production. Once it's produced, it goes to the first point of contact in the the market of right, which is let's say for agriculture, it might be a farmer's market. For the miner, it might be a smelter. The first point of sale is the right to the producer. That's where the wealth starts. It then gets put into commerce from there. We've got this so screwed up right now that they've got everybody underneath this ability that a pipsqueak in the Middle East can declare itself to be sufficiently have a status sufficient to declare war on New Zealand. And what does New Zealand do? You hear the silence, folks? That's what New Zealand is. Why? So I'm not worried about answering the why. I'm pointing out how we analyze how things in the world have gotten so far off. There should be outcries on these things, not the fake news, not the Pizzagate, not these things that are fed to us, or whatever. I mean, go on and on. They don't come to my mind because they're not important. They're just distractions. They're there to know, and inside them is very important information. Pizzagate was something I've been telling you about. I got pinched pretty hard for back in the 2000s. Exposing pedophilia in the system of government that says it's for protecting children, and in fact protective services is actually children's services, no different than adult services. And when that documentary was about to hit the airwaves, if you will, I got taken down. And I got another lesson to learn, and it got me here to today. The point was, it was on the radar a long time ago. They're wanting to get it in the perception. They'll diminish it. It's still going to go on, and no one will have stopped this stuff. No one focuses on the fact of what the notice told us was the truth about it, and we jump on more of the sensational side. And then we're clueless as to how to move that forward once we get that knowledge. In my case, I couldn't go any further. They literally took everything I had. I mean, it's pretty much when they take most of everything, you've got to rebuild. Then a big lifestyle change at that point. So these things are part of the equation for us that are wanting to battle the oppression. Had there be more people to see it, we might have got, someone else pick up the baton as they take me down. Someone grabs my flag and keeps running. I could care less if that happens. That'd be great. But we don't have that yet. We don't even have it till today. After all these years I've been talking, we don't have that baton passing, even if we get taken down. And I've come to points where I don't think we need to get taken down too much anymore. And the more of us that there are, when we're doing it right, when we don't make one mistake, then it exposes them immediately, and there'd be a whole mass of us that can identify that. And we start rattling their cage. Remember, they're in the cage. They just make it look like we're in it. They took the oath to follow certain rules, not you. They reach through the cage and they grab you and they actually pull you up to that cage, and they have enough force to make you think they've actually pulled you into their cage, and now you're subject to their will. And there's not enough of us that know how that happens in order to be the mass of people that rally up to go after that when it happens inside these institutions that are just mills of corruption and plunder. A pipsqueak, the mouse, I told you folks just weeks ago, I don't know how I do this. It occurs to me after. The mouse in the room that roared and scares the elephant is this point right here. The pipsqueak in the room, in the global room, yells at New Zealand for declaring war because it voted a certain way to allow other people its equal rights. And the elephant, New Zealand, is terrified into silence. Crickets! There he is, folks. Do you see how this works? Pretty simple. Did it another way. Crickets. New Zealand's a cricket. United States helps. For as much as they abstain, they should have never left a pipsqueak scare the other elephant. And what is that? And so we allow this kind of nonsense to go on, and we adulterate our foundations, and pretty soon you start seeing the devolution of society. We're not evolved, we're all devolved. Everyone has said this. This is obvious to me years and years ago. We're devolved. If there's an evolution at all, it's a nature in us. We're devolved. And our human nature, so-called the animal nature, is preyed upon. And we get to the point where that starts to rule, and we get this story here. I think this is a little bit off, but I'm going to say it like it's reported. Again, this is notice, not necessarily it's news, but it's really notice. We have to figure out what the news part is, the notice part is. California Democrats, as we pull down we allow the stinking abyss to suck us in and adulterate our lives and our principles. We get this kind of thing. California Democrats legalized child prostitution. Now, first of all, the Republicans were not on the podiums screaming their lungs out until they turned blue and died as the importance of this, so everyone would know. But California Democrats' legal child prostitution is a catchy sentence. I don't want to undermine what this actually does. I don't think that the law was meant to do that, I guess is the first point. So you got to read what the law was meant for. But the effect is what may allow this child prostitution in California, where beginning on January 1st, that's happening now, prostitutions by minors will be legal in California, is what the statement is. They claim it's yes, you read right, but let me offer what you have to listen very carefully for what it does, the effect of which will probably allow this prostitution and an exploitation of it. SB 1322 bars enforcement from arresting sex workers who are under the age of 18 for soliciting or engaging in prostitution or loitering with the intent to do so. So teenage girls and boys in California will soon be free to have sex in exchange for money without fear of arrest or prosecution. What happens is that they're forbade to interview someone who's underneath 18 about this. That, and it by effect, means that unless they can make a parallel construction, there's no way to get their assent and consent and statement and witness of the harm and the violation. That hole that's now created will be used and exploited to cause the defilement of a younger class of people. As I told you long before, there has been for many decades. They've been trying to eliminate capacity in our minds. Its capacity is already gone, essentially, a corporate side, legal side, because there's no person that has any incapacity when they're legalized by any year. But in as applied to men and women as people, I'm talking about us as people. You see, these words are kind of hard to deal with. But at any rate, as men and women, we have a capacity in our contracting that the statutes say a certain age from birth is legitimate to cause intent, knowing of your actions, and a duty to know, and a due diligence application, which legal has been trying to eliminate for all people, including you little ones. This is what this is starting to do. You understand, anybody under 18 now can't be interrogated or inspected or anything, even to help them, and so. my first thought on this is the cops are probably going to be the first one to exploit this. The point ultimately is, this is what happens when you lower the foundation in a system that wants to see this stuff and these impediments gone. There's no limitation on your liability to the point where, like we hear in the Philippines, if you're, I think it's 9 years old now, you can be gotten for felonies for handing someone a package of drugs. You're 9 years old, someone with more authority than you in the family or someone that threatens you says you need to give this package to this guy over here, and you go do it and you get caught, you're going to be a felon now in Philippines for drugs, is how they start to do this. And they want, this whole system wants no capacity in people to be able to defend themselves, and they really don't want anybody. It's intent and knowing are irrelevant already. They're making that point. And then they're making the point that they're going to be able to use these as exploitive models. Remember, there's a law against white slavery as well. See, it's not Black Lives Matter anyway. It's about the activities in commerce. And so we don't see what it is. Understand, they're talking about the exchange of money is commerce. These commerce laws are now going to interfere with the ability to interrogate minors, I guess I can call them. And that leaves open a big exposure. So I don't think that the intent is stated to do this, to exploit under 18-year-aged kids, little ones, little goats. But that's the effect of the legislation. So either we have a bunch of really 80 IQ minus legislators, or they're really legislators, and they found their own way into exploiting this group of revenue generators on the so-called black market that has now been made white. For as racist as that sounds. Remember, you put under the law as a colored person. You're colored by the law. When you freed up, you become so-called white. But even the freed up ones underneath exactions of every kind were white citizens, and they already paid the price that were put on those that were to come that were freed. This was done in Lincoln's time to y'all. I don't even know what more to say. To me, it's just notice that we're looking at the caucustocracy ruling. We're sliding into that stinking abyss, and no one's wanting to really claw out of it. They'll complain as they slide down, but they won't really claw their way out. And not anybody I know about my listeners are all into that, but maybe you didn't know. But somehow that's not an excuse either. We have to be more integrated in who we tell and how we tell it, and get people to engage more properly. It gets so bad, you start to criminalize everything. This is where it's going. There's no need for accountability. You did that when you signed your applications to be under state law for certain commercial activities, including your driver's license in this respect. Not limited to that, but driver's license is a commercial privilege you've asked for that says you're doing business in the state, and it's conditioned on federal law, Title 18, Section 31, I think. It tells you it's all about commerce. But underneath commerce, you have no right. You have no right anywhere. You're underneath the laws. People don't really understand the status that takes away everything you thought you had, and you're ignorant to that. And the system is set up to fight you if you know that, and do whatever it wants to do to keep the plunder going. But the ramifications to all this taking away of the mere act of something, whether not regarding capacity or intent or knowledge, is again evidence here that in California again, California man was arrested and charged with driving under the influence of caffeine. 38-year-old Joseph Schwab has been fighting a DUI, driving under influence, for a year, despite the fact that he was not under the influence of an illegal drug at the time. He did, however, test positive for caffeine. If you don't think we're into insanity, you got to really start paying attention that you're missing something, and then it's not good enough to see it. What are you going to do about it? This guy has a license, and now he's put underneath this general rule for driving under the influence, and they never really said what, did they? And so we have these lunacies that start happening, and it gets worse. You have to understand what they're doing here. They're showing that they can go after anybody without intent for just something that's however spacious, and then guess what? It gets to be put in the system, and you get to go a year before what happens. And the update, I understand, is they did drop these charges, but they involved this man's life for over a year, and I don't know whether or not. Most likely he probably had to get an attorney. Cha-ching. That's them, folks. They win. And you didn't know it all started with the fact of the application of a commercial application of rules and regulations that allowed them to do that. And they got you to abandon the right to use the road as it was disposed to you to do, and then they have the system to beat that down and out of you if you go inside and say that. And the only thing I can see is because there's not enough of you doing that right, and not enough of you, they're getting away with it. And we're getting to the point now you can be charged with whatever whim and caprice. Remember, I've done the report. It's not even, the notice to us was in a number of court cases and events, they can get the law wrong and still be right. That should not have been okay with anybody. And here we are, months and months, a year down the road or longer. So I wanted to bring up one more thing as it reminded me in California, now coming into being the new legalized drug monopoly. As they are doing that, just taking you all out. It's really sad at one level. They give you a little bit of corn, and you think you know, they give you a bowl of pottage, and you forget there was a whole feast on the table, and so you go for that. You get a handful of corn. I could have had the factory. I could have been making the stuff, but no, you'll take the little bit of handout. And so there's an administrative world we live in. I mentioned it earlier about the miners not understanding the Administrative Procedure Act. To go there, they asked me for the answer instead of just going where I said to go read. Understand the totality of it when you do so, and find the answer in a substantial way, not because you heard it from me or because you took liking to how that I'm pointing this stuff out. It's not about me saying it. It's about you knowing it and doing with it. I can't give that to you. You give that to you. And so I asked you all you people. I'm sure there's in this chat. I can't imagine who doesn't. In fact, I think I was asked by someone in another country in the chat room how come I'm such a boring guy, putting up with all these hippies. It's all done in fun. The point is that there's a lot of people that participate in cannabis. And I'm asking you all, those of you that are interested, there's gobs and gobs of you. Why aren't you taking action? Why aren't you taking action to protect this? This story came up before, and another story popped up now about it, and it reminded me to tell you, it's maybe not over here, but anybody who gave up, it doesn't matter. The DEA isn't making CBD oil illegal yet. The DEA isn't making CBD oil illegal yet. What did I say before? I said this is an administrative process, and you need to set your comments in law and substantial comments and meaningful comments into this agency and show them up for the frauds and the usurpers and oppressors that they are. This was a reminder to me to tell you, those of you that are interested, you need to start getting engaged in this administrative process and learn to write nice short letters that are powerful. And then stick with it. And if they don't do the simple bureaucratic processes, administrative processes, you shut them down. Everyone complains that it goes the way it goes and no one wants to step up to stop it. I don't understand that. Oh, they always go this way. Well, yeah, because you're not there to stop it. The right way, not complaining about it, not coming to the broadcast or the chats. No, go write the proper letter, tell them what the situation is, and when they make the violation, you might have another letter said you made the violation. And when you come up with a rule, I'm going to sue you. And have grounds to do so, not coffee grounds for caffeine. We're talking about CBD oil here. It's not illegal yet, reminded me, just off the title, folks, to tell you, those of you that smoke cannabis, or not even smoke it, if you use cannabis products, in particular for the CBD oil that I told you when I looked at the legalization laws, the monopolistic laws to go to the state, extracts that would do this pharmaceutical approach, it would challenge the pharmaceutical industry, were still illegalized. They're still going to be illegal for you to have. This is what they are after. This is what you can help and be the thing that stops it. All you got to do is understand how an administrative letter is constructed. They're not that hard. It's just a formal discussion on point, and bring your facts into law that you can prove they didn't establish, that they made the rule on, and this thing ends by an injunction if you don't stop them at this point. A lot of people say, oh, that's too much work. Well, this is what we've got, folks. It's one of the tools. Some of you can handle it better in the moment. That's great. I'm not ever dismissing that. In fact, teach us more how to do that, although that's an innate thing, I think. Here it is. DEA isn't making CBD oil as a message to you. You have your comments to be making to that agency. Why aren't you making them? Same thing with the legalization. Now petition in your states to make it, decriminalize it. Get rid of it. You're seeing that it was the wrong idea to legalize it. Now became a monopolistic thing that happens that can't be regulated, actually, to anybody's safety. It was better to leave it like it was before, where as long as we didn't sell it and we just grew it and gave it to each other, they didn't have jurisdiction either. Why do we go from that? No different than the roads, the highways, the patent land. It's all comes out of the land. It's a pertinent the right of the land. It's not a commerce discussion. Yet now the product of this process, which is yours as a producer to begin with before it enters commerce, is now the subject of a discussion underneath a techno-bureaucrat, heavy on the rat. That here we are again, another message to you. DEA isn't making CBD oil illegal yet, is your notice to get in there, folks. Quit making the excuses not to engage. Take a few minutes, write a simple letter, and stay on it. You guys, I hear people can rattle off the facts beyond me to even keep up with. And yet you won't reduce that to a formal report, nice, short, concise report. Keep your front page to maybe one, maybe 2 pages. Support it with supportive documents and submit it and say, here, until you figure this is what you need to know. If you don't follow this and you don't make practicable your answer in the rule, I'm going to have to sue you for injunction based on this, and they have to come back and give you an answer that sets their stone, and then you move on. Why can't we do that? An injunction's a 14-day process, folks. I'm not talking about a lot here. Oh, you can give permission to make it go on forever, but that's not the process. That's your consent. So what do? You have no capacity. You're not engaging. You're not stopping this stuff. You're not writing your letters of complaint. You're not making a record for yourself. The most important, the record of objection to the oppression. The meaningful designation of the failures of the one who's supposed to sit in trust to protect everybody. Listen, part of me doesn't necessarily disagree with having a larger view, a protection for remedy purposes against corporations which want to make profit. But you see how that the system has been turned over by giving you the right to say, and when you didn't say, whoever is saying gets their way. It's what we found out in the environmental area. When half of the NEPA wasn't brought to the table to bring the balance, the environmentalists bringing one spotted owl feather, the balance weighed in favor of their spotted owl feather. Because no miner or no agricultural entry or no ranger or no rancher never brought a grain of sand or a blade of grass, anything to the other side of what man would be an impact on man's side of the scale. Is this very same problem? And when we did, the scale, they realized they can't balance the scale because there's no amount of bird feathers they can put on the natural environment side that can outweigh a grain of sand for a production side. This is as simple as I'm talking in every instance. And when you lose this, you start getting the bureaucrats and these oppressors in the form of bar association members, and their system they made to start making rulings that make you less and less ability to defend yourself. Putting more and more of the weight of balance on the side of the oppressor. As we see this next one, federal court rules dogs can be shot if they bark or move when officer enters home, stemming from a controversial Michigan case recently, that the dogs can be shot just because they bark or lunge or whatever they're doing. 3 Michigan police officers who shot 2 dogs for lunging and barking at them during a drug raid were once again justified in their actions, this time by a federal appeals court. Again, I guess I could go through and read it all, There's a whole, and the first sentence tells me a ton of where the work is. What's this doing in a federal court in a state issue? What is this drug war doing to people that they can just come in and shoot your dog? This was anticipated before when the cops shoot your dog and then you can't get him for anything. Your dog's not something we would embrace and love and gives kisses and special treats to our dog. And they're part of the family, we're told, but legal says it's just a thing. It's a chattel. It's a piece of property. And the officers can destroy that when the presumption's on the officer's side of a valid warrant underneath the presumption of a valid war. If you don't think that we're under war, even if there wasn't the war of terror, the drug war is a declared war. Why aren't we stopping that? No, there's people starting to mention it. I'm talking in a substantive way. They can come and shoot your dogs. How is that any less, folks? What's next? You're just an animal. What are you seeing already? You're being shot, and you didn't say anything. What's going to happen here? Far less. Well, you might say more about this, actually, but you still aren't going to say enough and in the right way. They can shoot your dogs, folks. They can make up what they want. They can be wrong in the warrant, and you have no protection against that because the presumption is on the oppressor. And you were crickets against it. No different than they're going to exploit the rule in California. I think the cops and the system, the lawyers and the judges are all going to exploit the ones under 18 on child services. I told you, it's like adult services. It's on the street. But it's institutionalized as child services. Now they're letting you know. They're not going to investigate. This was one of the problems I was looking at in 2002 or 3 when I was doing my documentary. You can't get at all the they've covered it underneath the protecting the minor, all this evidence. And I realize they're protecting their crime. This is what they're doing. So cops can shoot your dog on these warrants. They cannot even understand the law correctly, and they're okay. They can use social media to develop those thoughts. They're completely wrong, and they're okay, folks. How far down in the stinking abyss do we go before we start saying, whoa, 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 hold it? And not just talk about it, but actually start working together in order to make the attack, to stop it. Cops are going undercover and watching social media to combat hate crimes. It should bother you a lot. We've talked about this over and over. There's just more stories. They're telling you this is the notice. This is happening. They're actually getting funding and money. They're actually, the counties are asking for bids on how to implement what they have. And this is a story I have. It's happening in California as well. You just watch the oppression locking down now. This is your new 2017 is happening. Happy New Year. Keep it up. The crickets. Keep it up. And the story that I was going to read goes through a whole lot of things going on. In people interfering with themselves in bad ways and not making the right decisions and just interfering with each other in maybe not so nice ways and maybe even criminal. That they show us in this story that eventually it leads over to the social networks which they're using as the monitor. You're self-convicting, not remaining silent on any of this. And now they want to buy equipment, solicit companies to make equipment to monitor this automatically and make decisions. Talk about AI on the heels here. This report I also have is the final report for this. It supports this. Got a link for you to read it. Those of you that are interested, you see what they're asking for. That will tell you what they plan to do, and you might as well expand it from there once you see the basic rudiments of the framework of what they're asking us to pay. They're going to pay for these certain services to be done. Is there the insight as to how they're going to be taking people out, what data they'll be using to make up whatever they need to do in order to come to your house underneath the pretense, with a bar member signing the pretense order to come into your front door, knock it in, and shoot your dog. And then shoot you, as this has always been happening, and then steal your stuff. See, they have a term out there, I think I heard it a little bit ago, equitable sharing. They call the cops are equitably sharing in your stuff. It's not equity, folks. This is crime underneath the admiralty. This is seizure. This is booty. I told you this before. This is plunder on the high seas on land. The pirates have built the bridge from their ship to your land, and now they're coming and they're taking you over. Another way to look at it. It's also under the military. Remember, the admiral is a military consequence as well. Why do you think the United States government has the exclusive jurisdiction in its courts? Why don't people put this together? It's all about commerce, profit, no matter who's doing it. And you've given the oppressor the tools to become the plunderer and become the oppressor it has always been. As I said earlier, at the home of the free and brave here, it was a fake news. Doesn't mean that there wasn't underlying foundations we can use to protect ourselves, but we haven't been doing that. And we've been allowed to, they'll let us forget all this stuff. Policing for profit goes to the next level. So here's where it goes. Remember, let's go back to that caffeine charge. Got charged for driving under the influence of caffeine. You got arrested. Got to go through a year worth of nonsense before they drop the charges. And now we're going to hear this little nuance. More policing for profit is not equitable sharing. It's booty they're stealing from you as a pirate underneath the color of authority. And don't underestimate the constitutional letter patent that are to allow a privateer to do this. Be careful what you consider is constitutional and not constitutional. Remember, war and the declaration of it pretty much removes everything, and now you're in necessity. If I go to war, the admiral may be the very first and next thing you should be thinking about. And in fact, they're doing everything through this false, fraudulent characterization of called equitable sharing, like it's supposed to sound like it is. It's not an equity at all, because equity is for remedy. And you have none. And the only other thing this can be is a privateer, especially in the face of this public-private partnershipping, the privateer coming in. And that's why I said go back to USC 42 USC 1981 and look at, I think, Part C talks about non-state actors. If you don't use that term, there's another subtlety that goes in. I said, be careful. That's your corporations working for the government. That's your public-private partnership, written in 1868, folks. This is now admiralty, and they're stealing from you, not equitable sharing. It's not sharing at all. And we buy this stuff. This is plunder, and we say nothing. The next level is that when they charge you or arrest you, they then charge you a fee for the service of doing so, and the service of arresting you, and the service of checking you into the jail, and the service of keeping you. It's bad enough getting arrested, especially when you didn't do anything to warrant it. Keep that part in mind right there, this article is writing. Even when they did nothing to warrant it. Driving while caffeinated. This happens all the time, which should be on its face a statement of condemnation of the system you live in right there. This should never have been allowed to get like this. And yet we have. And the reason, I have my constitutional rights, folks, you have an oppressor. You have an occupier. It's called the Bar Association at minimum. Don't disregard the financial sector, but we're going to go after the ones that are the end of the spear here, that have made the rules under these Model Business Corporation Act since at least 53, subsumed you, mischaracterized your status, and put this on you. It's why you're not innocent until proven guilty. You're subject to the legal by presumption. It's your duty now to avoid that presumption. It's rebuttable. It's why those remedies sit there that none of you understand and none of you will take. And it's why the government gets what they want. And then there's not enough of us. Anyway, this happens all the time because of the threshold for arresting someone is very low. It can be done by any cop. Why is that? So I can't even read this stuff every few words. It's administrative. Otherwise, there'd be probable cause to believe, and they'd have to prove it if you knew to force that. And if you knew how to put one against the other, and you were before an actual impartial counsel, a trier of fact, not the system counsel of the Bar Association that created the very system you're standing in, under whatever title and jurisdiction. It can easily be done by any cop pretty much any time without much of the way of legal justification. He has the gun and the handcuffs, after all. If he wants to arrest you, he will arrest you. Maybe the courts will sort it out later. Eventually you are released. Your record is cleared. This isn't new or news. What is new and ought to be news, and I'm telling you it's notice, is that several states have begun charging people processing and incarceration fees for their bogus arrests and subsequently just as bogus caging. I'm just going to stop. There's more to read. I could read this stuff. I just look over and I'm running, just time ticking. We got plenty of time, but time ticks. I got so much to go on. They are now figured out, see, it's a fee. All right? They've been allowed to do this as a service. This is service rendered. Do you understand what I call black hole funding by service charges, and that's how they're getting around some of these more substantial foundations, that you are being crickets to this imposition. They can make stuff up, and they can make a business just of hauling you in just to get your processing fee. What did I tell you about driving in a car? You've got all the technology in your pocket you've asked for. You're driving in your car across an intersection. You blow the light. It says you blew a red light, and before you reach the other end, you're getting a receipt from the city for your doing business with, thanking you for doing business with them, and deducting your bank account with the fee, the fine, and the charges for the violation in traffic that you've agreed to. And I said additionally it's going to be also made, possibly, that if you don't have funds in an account, you won't be able to do that without the account. So the rest of you are dead. Those that have the account, if you don't have any funds in the account to pay for it, you may not make it to the crosswalk because they'll drone you out of this existence for being the lackey, useless eater that you are, that they couldn't parasiticize from you. This is going to be how automatic it is. Why not just do this? Why? Because you're not stopping it, and they're now made it so that the whole world is sitting underneath a bureaucrat's rule and thumb. They charge you all these fees while they're going on, and it's a service to you. So let's go back and say, okay, what are we going to do about this? Well, I don't know completely, but I got an idea. Don't you have to have a service contract, folks? So isn't their ability to do this coming under the color of an authority without the contract? And if they don't they have to declare the authority they have to do it, that they call a service fee? What is the service? When was your consent? How did you consent? You have a way now at the things that you would and may not have thought about before that I've always thought about doing when we do processing of paperwork. How about your demand that your notice to them ahead of time? Work it out. Figure out how to do this. Maybe make a demand. If you have a processing fee, the contract is the compensation for this contract is maybe 1,000 times or 10,000 times their value for interrupting my right. You have a dynamic to put into play. Don't be stupid. You do that right off the bat, they're going to target you. So you got to build this thing. What I'm saying is that you have to think of what are they doing. They're saying it's a service fee. They're saying it's a fee for a service. Where's the contract? You're going to find out the contract sits for the driving is in your application. You got to get rid of that. Then you got to, before you do that, while you have it, you have all the power to challenge their authority without being involved with the detriment of it. Other than maybe they pinpoint you and track you down a bit. And that's why, for you all, I would hope you have a lot of friends, because if you want to stop this, this is what a gang does. You have to stop the gang. It's organized crime you're up against. If you don't get that, you're going to miss it, and it's going to be beyond you, and you will suffer whatever you suffer. Some of you will escape. Some of you have the gift of gab. Some will be able to reason with the guy because the guy is reasonable. He's not a plunderer so much, and you'll get away, and your history of that will get you away, and you'll be one of the few that do, but the whole of society goes down, and the future gets a lot darker. It'd be better if it got darker, but it won't. It'll go darker. So, they want to say this is a service fee, and the reason why I'm saying that, the backup article on this is from that headline there, was services rendered. They put them in quotes. Services rendered. What's my service contract, folks? And so this lays out the other idea. Once you have a bill put against you, you can challenge it under federal debt collection practices, and you should, since you're in it already. And when they put this lien on you, you go after the debt that they're trying to collect, and you have them justify that against the foundational rights and how they didn't commit fraud to impose it. My problem with all this is I'm handing you a gun that's loaded, and you're a little kid, you don't realize that you've done it to yourself, and so that's what's going to come out in the end. Then you'll think I'm a jerk and I led you down the wrong path because you went into it wrong. And I'm hoping you're going to go beyond that and learn what's better and start to undo this thing you did to yourself that they allowed you to do to yourself. It's now services rendered. They're going to charge you for everything you do to touch the government. And they do it on the end of their instance, whether or not it's right. Just that concept alone should trouble you. They can get evidence from anywhere, make up anything they want, have a misinterpretation of whatever the actual implementation is. They can literally lie, and we've been told they can lie to the government to protect other things, and they can get warrants, and they can come into your house, knock your door in. It's completely wrong. Get the wrong address, shoot your dogs and your little one with a flashbang, and then shoot you. And they were fine. Where do you find any of this in peace and tranquility, folks? The preamble, the Supreme Court of Woodshed said the preamble means nothing now. That should have really caught some attention, but it didn't. Evidence from anywhere. You cannot not incriminate yourself and be free from what all the things they hand you will give them the information they need to fabricate whatever. If they can do fake news, they can do you, folks. Pretty simple. I don't know if no one's equating these things. I mean, to me, they're just thoughts, and I think about it, and I'm on to my next point. I mean, it's just, well, why not? I mean, this is the way it works. I don't have another thought more to tell you. And I realize, wait a minute, people don't really know about this thing. People don't know the stuff that I researched a couple decades ago when writing was coming is here, and they don't recognize it even after it's here. They certainly have no will whatsoever in order to do anything about it. They're either incapable, they've made their avoidances, they're too intelligent to understand themselves, to understand that the oppressor sits there, that, yeah, they're probably right not to engage it, but, that's not going to help a damn thing. It allows the next oppressor to do an oppression to another victim, the stop of which is all of us giving a damn and caring enough. Again, getting back to the acquisition of the social context of the Internet of Things and what we're warned about, and why I've been so vehement against a lot of this, even though I think it's great technology. I think, again, used right way, we have a big power and a lot of great tools. I couldn't do anything really as efficiently and widespread as I do. Certainly couldn't talk with you right here by itself without this Internet of certain things. But yet there's other things that we don't know about. These devices they send us, that they sell us. I told you I gave plenty of stuff behind the woodshed telling you years ago, devices that were learning how to sense you. This is what I found fascinating, because I used to work as a R&D technician to a scientist inventor. We teamed up for a while, and he would have ideas and do the science behind it, and I'd build all that stuff for him. And we did this stuff. We did detection type tools, and we did being able to detect. We made sensors. We made devices that were attempting to make camouflaging, very simple techniques. It was really astonishing how simple things are to do. Real basic knowledge, electronics knowledge to do these things. But I could see that this technology could be used, and we had the reports that they're making technology and sensors that can see you, sense you, understand you, and they put it to these little bitty chips for $5. Now you understand you get a whole Pi computer. It's like a Linux system, in a chip almost once you get it programmed. They can put these things about anywhere now. Even light bulbs could be sending information back and forth if they're the LEDs. All this technology is here to listen to you. The so-called smart, not intelligent, but smart technology is in everything. And they're getting this information for what? Technocracy, data collection, big data, and ultimately to go to the government to do what it will do. They want to make you a target. They've got everything. They have the goods on you, even if there's no goods at all that we hear. And I don't know why this wasn't the very first thing in anybody's mind. It wasn't mine. The walls have ears. Warrant granted for Amazon's echo recordings. If you had a thought of how dubious the thought and conspiracy idea, theory, whatever they want to call it, outlandish sci-fi, that the walls have ears, that your devices are listening, we now have a court, a state request for evidence through the use of the Amazon Echo, getting their soundbite recordings that Amazon does store, and it happens to be related to a murder that happened at the night in that place that the Echo device could hear and may have recorded. So keep it up. You tell that your Microsoft projects that look at you through the monitor with that special sensor they made. Keep it up. Amazon Echo was cited in a warrant related to November 2015. 2015. They've been doing this, folks. They've been going on beyond this. They've been doing it before you. They've already got it going, and we're buying right into it. Silent Weapons, Quiet Wars, all over this. Related to a November 2015 murder in Bentonville, Arkansas, while other smart devices were identified. Other smart devices were identified in the warrant. Police have pinned some specific hopes on the Echo for a simple reason. It never stops listening. Next. Another electronics data vulnerability. They're giving it to us to use against us. And now this year for 2017, Happy New Year, how not to lose your Bitcoin in 2017. I didn't want to read more. I did read more because I wanted to see what they're saying, but how not to lose your Bitcoin in 2017 is the problem I keep telling you about that I'm not so sure about it. I don't think I'm so smart to figure this one out. I don't know the technology. I don't know how to save it. I'm doing my best to keep myself where I'm at and to keep my systems running, just to keep them running, to avoid all this nonsense of hacking and being interfering and having stuff stolen from me. But now you tell me that I have certain things to do to not lose my Bitcoin is the problem. You can lose your Bitcoin if you don't keep up with these things, and this is just a short list of really nothing. It's just a short list of basic things. You can lose your Bitcoin for all of us going into this cashless digital society. They have a place for you to plug in. I've said last week, Bitcoin, I should maybe have rethought the Bitcoin thing, jumped in it for the interlude that's going to happen before regulation and control. I may have not been so intelligent not to pick that part up, but at some point there's going to be this problem that you are now having to keep, is my wallet safe? How is it safe? And they give you a list. I'll just go through the quick list. You can read it. You can go to the Blogcaster. I hope you do. A lot of people don't, but maybe you find the stories and don't go to the website. Again, going to the website lets us know how much listeners there are and who's been passing the word. And it's not by who we know. It's just that the clicks go through. I just count numbers. It doesn't tell me much. I just see that people are somewhat interested. Not a lot, but some. That's cool. So you can read it. The Blogcaster sets up. I spend over 2 hours. In fact, the Gigi's Boo and Gary L. will be on broadcast, I guess, 2 hours after the end of this broadcast with their broadcast today. I can't quite get done before they start, but right after I get it posted, and although all my post-production starts to go out. So, but to secure your Bitcoin, which is apparently not secure, at least back up today is number one. Here are the 8 do-it-yourself tips to help you improve your security. Back up today, that's good for about any computer. Back up today, folks. Do what you can. I haven't found a good answer to a lot of this, but back up today, whatever you can. Certainly you're back up often, and maybe double up. Check on your backups. Once you do it, this is number 2 now. This is, to me, it's a backup, but here's now the second thing you can do to protect. This is the only second thing you get to do. Check on your backups. Make sure that they're backed up properly. Don't just back up and not check it. That's kind of a difficult thing as well, but somehow you figure that out. But do backups. Check your backups. Set a calendar reminder to do backups. Move money off your smartphone. So the first 3 are simply do backups. That wasn't too encouraging in my mind, because I know there's some other threats out there, but that's the first 3 of 8. Move your money off your smartphone, the not intelligent phone. But with I'll read this one a little bit. With the increase of Bitcoin price, you might be shocked on how much money you've been carrying around on your smartphone. If you're into it. Now is a great time to move your coins onto a hardware wallet or into cold storage. So get them off your phones. Those are hackable. Remember, you're the user. You're the parasite on someone else's infrastructure. They can hack you anytime they want. That can be exploited. Now, I'm just realizing I've been looking to try and root a phone. I want to get into the root access so I can get rid of stuff and make the phone more of what I want, not what they want. And the version of phone that I was given, it's an older unit. It's not really conducive, and I don't want to lose the capacity I have, so I have everything else turned off as best as I can. But I wanted to go root it, so I'm trying to figure out what is this process of rooting? Rooting is the ability to exploit a vulnerability in the Linux system or the chip system that they use in your phones in order to give you the process to root, to get to root foundation of the device. Meaning, these devices, these phones are full of vulnerabilities in order to give you the root, which means they're full of vulnerabilities for anybody else to figure out how to get into your computer, your system, your phone, in order to gain the access it needs. Bothers me when I see get your money off your smartphone. It's not too intelligent, folks. Don't put it there in the first place, it seems to me, unless it's just a quick transaction. Number 5, move your money off the exchanges. If you have any coins sitting on an exchange, move them out today to control your wallet. Most of the popular exchanges pool coins and will have you have a balance showing on your account. You do not actually control the keys. If the exchange gets hacked, you could lose your money. Remember that you only control the Bitcoin if you control the keys. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So you're handing your wealth, your rights to somebody else, your value to somebody else to do. Not too smart when it comes to your money. Especially when you don't know them in the anonymous nature. Upgrade to two-factor authentication. Okay, that's going into your wallet, I guess, to sign in and to sign out. How you get it, move transition, upgrade to two-factor authentication. Then it requires, I think, maybe an email, which means you have to be tied into the system somewhere else. And those are all connected, so understand that. Use a password manager. I'm afraid of all these password things and managers and stuff. I don't, if I can't get a password right, then I don't know how a manager is going to. It's just another electronic imposition, it seems. But some of you might be into password managers. They may work. I'm not around that much to talk with people to figure out how they would aid me, but I don't use them. But you might need it. So need it. They say you should use one, and it has to do with how the passwords are generated and all, and how they're kept. There's a couple of programs that some cost you. So again, they're saying it costs you to get a password manager you can trust in order to keep your Bitcoin. Well, that's no different than a bank fee. Now it's just somebody else. Third-party people now are sucking in, attaching into this thing that you are using. It costs $80 to keep your money safe on one authentication tool that may or may not actually work. It is my problems with all this electronic stuff. Not that it's not a neat thing. Again, number 8 now. Plan for your family about these things. If something happened to you tomorrow, would your family be able to access your Bitcoin? Well, this tip takes time to implement. It's worth it. I'll just leave it like that. It tells you how to do this, folks. This is just another value property. This is something that's highly vulnerable in my mind, especially after I looked and understood what rooting a phone actually is about. They're telling us these phones are vulnerable. They use those vulnerabilities for ostensibly a good thing, getting you into the root. But that still says it sits there to be exploited, and these people that sit as so-called white hat exploiters to get you into your phone, that stuff isn't necessarily be used only by white hat exploiters to get you in, but might be used by somebody else to get in on your stuff. That's not just your Bitcoin, that's your stuff. It's in your bank accounts and all the other stuff. You're vulnerable. So I thought that was very important. It scares me to death at some level about this. I would put very little value in these systems. I may use them for convenience. Like a long time ago when I had credit cards, I never had a bill, folks. The bill they came, but I'm saying is I never made payments. I used it as a convenience tool so that you have less cash or just more timely condition if you didn't quite have enough. I used it as convenience. When that bill came in, the money was already sent out. I mean, it was paid. It was just a convenience tool. This may be the same thing. And you see what has happened to the credit card condition and the banking system plunder that goes around with fees and fines and limitations and all this around these control structures. The writing's on the wall for this Bitcoin, as far as I can tell, in this regard as well. For as cool as it is an idea, in a perfect world, folks, we're not in a perfect world. Get your head out of the sand. And because we're not, we have something to do. And so let's move on about this. I was talking to you about, these legalizations and things. An interesting source of information came up, and I just proved out what I was telling you before. It wasn't in the country United States, the home of the free and brave, whatever the hell they call it, with the little ditty they want to tell us. it's a fee and slave here, and they tell you when they don't tell you that you have a way to avoid it by avoiding commerce, which is really how we interact. So they've taxed regulated the whole entire existence of our interaction, which we don't understand. But a little Twitter came through. It says, wow, from the marijuana majority by name. It says join the majority. I don't know. We'll see. Majority of what? An opinion on the shelf means nothing. You have a majority of opinion. You can own all the opinions. It means nothing on the shelf. You got to do it right. But here's an interesting discussion of something I was telling you about. When you get the translation, you have to go through. It's kind of difficult. I also have the original article and then the translator. You can go through paragraph by paragraph to find it, and it's not that great of a translation. But you get the gist of what they're talking about, which is what I told you before about marijuana and the fact of its possession and use in a non-commercial point, where this reference goes to the Constitutional Court in the Republic of Georgia just issuing a ruling abolishing imprisonment for marijuana. Listen carefully. The Constitutional Court in the Republic of Georgia just issued a ruling abolishing imprisonment for marijuana. Now, foreign jurisdiction, not applicable. The theory here should be applied locally, though. This is a universal point, I believe, that's been touched on, and I respond by taking some of the quote from it as translated, and it's a little off, but you might get the idea. One paragraph says exactly what I've been telling you about the non-commercial private use of marijuana and the government's attachment to commercial activity in order to make it a violation. That the Georgian court said the reason why you can't imprison people for marijuana up to 70 grams was because there's no real market risk. They say risk, but it's a nexus. There's no market nexus to 70 grams of marijuana. In fact, it's a self-evident proof of the failure of being in commerce. That makes it a facial proof against imprisoning people. If I said that clearly enough, you have to understand the logic of this. That 70 grams in and of itself is not a commercial nexus from which the law actually applies, is what I've been telling you before they legalized it. You had the right to grow it, and you had the right to use it, and you might even have the right to give it away. You didn't have the right to make a commercial enterprise out of it. What have I said about the land use laws? When the law is actually applied, not through this judicial legal system, this legal justice system, or the bar association system, or the party system as it's been imposed upon us. When you come from land use disposal and the obligations and duties of the de jure state to do the protection, you have the rights pertinent to grow anything on your property and use it. This is in contrast with what the Supreme Court said in 1938 in the wheat case. That was a completely wrong decision for the land of the free, home, and the brave, for sure. But in the land disposal law and obligations, the government to protect your right to produce from the land. The marijuana is irrelevant. It's just another plant to produce. That you use it privately is your right pertinent that disposal. Why? Because it's exclusive to you and excludes the government's interposition. How do we know further that the wheat case was wrong? And I don't remember the name, I apologize, you can go find it. Because they attached commerce to the land instead of waiting it to the first point of sale. They apparently attached the silo as a commerce storage, and that was wrong too. But somehow they connected the commerce to the land. The pirates built a bridge to land disposal. That this case in Georgia declares in the Republic of Georgia the fact of what I was telling you. 70 grams, in fact, they said it even better. 70 grams is essentially prima facie evidence of the failure to do commerce and be in commerce upon which the law can apply to keep someone in jail. So you get the Russian, the Georgian, I think it's in Russia, the Georgian transcript. I've also included a translator. I don't use Google, and Bing wasn't so cool, so I usually use Bing and not so hype on it, but I couldn't find another one that actually worked as well. So this is like a third check. For those of you that don't care about Google and want to be part of their data collection, I guess you can use Google, maybe good enough, but I gave you a translator. You can type the copy and paste the text in. I think it's Russian that'll be done. You can read this for yourself. Again, I want you to read these things for yourself. I want you to see and apply then the underlying theory that commerce is the thing of the world. It's how this thing actually flies. And if you understand to distance yourself from those statuses it's imposed and the activities they impose and all these things that are frauds upon you, you expose the felony on their side. And you can start making records for this before you jeopardize yourself. You're sitting in a whole lot better case than to just make a claim that's unsubstantiated. My main gripe about the DAPL. And you know that if you've listened to what I've been saying. I'm not against people supporting their own property, their rights, but the facts that have been presented and all that are wrong. And you look at different sources to get different pieces of information, you correlate that, and the Indian people are not doing what they need to do. The same thing that all of us need to do to avoid this exactions of every kind of imposition that's been put onto us by these people that are in positions of power. And we see a little bit of this dynamic, this battle, they'll say, sits there. One more thing here we can talk about. The Virginia Court of Appeals coming from the Republic of Georgia, which actually when I read it, I thought it was actually the United States making that decision, but it actually was a Russian, if we can say, a Russian case that exposes the truth to us. And it conformed exactly what I was told you. So take it you can take that with a grain of salt, research it out you want. It'll be what I'm telling you, because I'm trying to hit this at the point. Another point to be said for the United States side, and the Second Amendment, the Virginia Court of Appeals rules a photo ID can't be required for a concealed handgun permit application. Well, first of all, they've ruled against your right to carry arms. It should have been impertinent your right to bear it concealed. That's the first problem. But the second thing is they say photo ID cannot be used, cannot be required. Okay, so what's the point? Well, it's because not everybody has one of those IDs. And what are they tied to? Not even though it seems like it, and most, 99, the 1% may not, and then those that don't normally, like older folks, they don't have an ID. Why? Because if you look at what IDs for, IDs are the surrogate driver's license. They come under the same Commerce Authority. The ID is a non-driver driver's license. Again, it agrees to the laws of the state underneath the Motor Vehicle Code, not a right. So that's a limited class of people, right? And so this is what I was telling you about pooling. The jury pool you pool from is from the same authority that can't be used as a requirement to support an underlying constitutional right. That is the same imposition they do in your jury trials that you don't understand as a violation of the Constitution if you're in a court where the Constitution was actually applicable. Which it's not, because you didn't avoid it when you identified that the laws are typically commerce controls. Am I saying a whole lot here too fast? Probably so. But it's all there, folks, on the tape. Thank you very much for tuning in today. You can play it over again like Vince easily. He easily gets to our pastcast, and he appreciate all his help. He puts the stuff up on YouTube. I understand we need more subscribers to give us a special little thing. I don't even know what that is. For those of you that are using YouTube that haven't signed up on the RLM, the Real Liberty Media YouTube site, please subscribe. It gets us up. I think we only need maybe 17 more, and it'll get us into some special ID. I don't even know what it is, a special link. So anyway, to make it easier for us to get the broadcasts out. And thank you again, Grimner, to reallibertymedia.com, what you do there, and I'll provide all the archives. Donate, folks, to that. I don't ask for myself. We got to keep the equipment going, and despite, I got to keep going on my margins. Grimner's got the bigger haul on the equipment and the hardware, and doing all the technicals behind it, support that. And Granny Mary, thank you again for the Spreaker account, keeping that voice going on. And we have SoundCloud and Internet Radio, Hash Radio, and then we have freedomsnetwork.com for the social network contact, and then Jules at UCY, thank you very much, and Happy New Year. I didn't get to say that in the chat, and all y'all in all the chat rooms. Happy New Year, really, Happy New Year. Let's just make a better one, and better one than we had. And we see it coming. We just got to act against it. And terrestrial broadcasters, thank you very much for all that you do to broadcast the radio, broadcast to the Luddites having actual radio. I'll be here next week, tech tips and nature willing.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
Well, that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.
Truth on the Tracks you can catch every Monday night and Friday